This is the 2018 Intercollegiate Championship Tournament provided by NAQT, and this is a packet that they have available online, packet number 16. And these are the toss-ups. Toss-up number 1. Railroad pioneer Robert Stephenson was the godfather and namesake of this man, who disguised himself as a butterfly collector while serving as an intelligence officer in Dalmatia. This man invented a man-carrying kite and deployed an unmanned version of it to conduct photographic reconnaissance at Modder River. This man's troops pretended to bury landmines to deceive Boer forces at Mafeking. For 10 points, name this man who helped found the Girl Guides and the British Scouting movement. And the answer there is Baden-Powell, Robert Baden-Powell. Toss-up number 2. One of these two characters tells the other that even Niobe remembered to eat and claims that Zeus's hall has 2 jars of blessings and curses. Hermes takes the guise of Polyctor's son to guide one of these two men who tells the other to, quote, remember your own father, unquote. These two men arrange a 12-day truce after the return of a body that had been dragged behind a chariot. For 10 points, name these two Homeric characters, a Greek hero and the Trojan king whose son he killed. Answers there, Achilles and Priam. And you had to get both of those, but in either order. Toss-up number 3. The French exile Rodriguez Mingus controls the military position in this province. The northeastern part of this province was formerly covered in rainforest and is known as the Mayombe Hills. The castagna, cocoa, and masambala oil discoveries are processed at the Malongo plant in this province, whose independence is fought for by the FLEC and UNLC. This province is on the Atlantic coast between the Republic of Congo and the DR Congo. For 10 points, name this exclave of Angola. And the answer there is Cabinda. Toss-up number 4. A Syriac word for this woman's descendants, Magraye, is discussed in a book about her ism by Patricia Crone and Michael Cook. This woman is emulated in a ritual called Sa'i. According to Islam, she was given a bucket of dates by her husband, who worked with her son to build the Kaaba. While thirsty, this woman ran 7 times between As-Safa and Al-Marwa, 2 hills, before an angel created the well of Zamzam. Arabs traditionally claim descent from, for 10 points, what mother of Ishmael? And the answer there is Hagar. Toss-up number 5. These cells name a family of 22 proteins whose receptors complex with the Klotho family. When they possess actin, they resemble smooth muscle and have the prefix myo. KLF4, C, MIC, OCT34, and SOX2 were used by Shinya Yamanaka to reprogram these cells into induced pluripotent stem cells. These cells synthesize glycosaminoglycans and are stimulated to divide by tissue damage. For 10 points, what primary cells of the connective tissue synthesize collagen and cause fibrosis in wound healing? And those would be fibroblasts. Toss-up number 6. A leader of this political faction wrote the Hulseman letter addressing the international rights of American ships during the Costa Affair with Austria-Hungary. This faction's name may derive from a word meaning home base in Dutch. This faction's leaders included Daniel S. Dickinson and William L. Marcy. After the 1848 election, it split into the Softs and the Hards. For 10 points, name this pro-slavery faction of the 19th century New York Democratic Party, which opposed the Barn Burners. Answer there, the Hunkers. Toss-up number 7. The father of this novel's title character was a town mayor under the consulate before being replaced by a large landowner. Its title character is confined to her room on a diet of bread and water after her father, who economizes everything, even movement, finds that she has given her collection of gold coins to her bankrupt cousin and love interest Charles. The town of Sommer is the setting of, for 10 points, what novel about the daughter of the greedy Felix by Honoré de Balzac? The answer there is Eugénie Grandet. Toss-up number 8. This event is said to have taken place in the Ahalya Bhumi, an unplowed field in Vasakund. The fifth afternoon of Paryushana features a recounting of this event accompanied by 14 boli, or auctions that correspond to auspicious dreams, including visions of a full moon and of a four-tusked white elephant. The antelope-headed god Harinaigameshin transferred a fetus from the Devananda to Queen Trishala prior to, for 10 points, what event at the start of the life of the last Tirthankara of Jainism? And the answer there, that would be the birth of Mahavira. I could have also accepted the birth of Vardhamana. Toss-up number 9. A mechanic was arrested in one of these two countries for using women's underwear soaked in invisible ink to pass secrets to the other. Military intelligence from one of these countries instructed citizens of the other to plant bombs in cinemas and libraries in Operation Susanna. One of these countries lost a massive airstrike in 1967 after the other one closed shipping in the Straits of Tiran. The Camp David Accords were signed between, for 10 points, what two Middle Eastern countries? And those two Middle Eastern countries are Egypt and Israel. Toss-up number 10. A Lorenzo Lotto painting of this woman includes a cartouche showing her dialogue. This woman has several white and silver objects at her feet, including a comb and a silk shawl, in a painting in which she sits in front of a rose trellis by Tintoretto. This woman sits on a ledge while two men behind her whisper to each other in a painting by Artemisia Gentileschi. For 10 points, name this woman from the book of Daniel who was accosted by elders in a common artistic scene. And that would be Susanna. I could have also accepted Susanna and the elders. Toss-up number 11. A retired Army officer with this surname who noted that rates of, quote, non-firers throughout history, unquote, plummeted in Vietnam in his 1995 book On Killing, teaches killology seminars to police departments. A woman with this surname produced a 2003 English translation of Don Quixote. A 2009 novel that introduced Ember and Umber, the ram gods of Fillory, was written by a man with this surname. Quentin Coldwater was created by, for 10 points, what author of the Magician's trilogy whose first name is Lev? And that surname is Grossman. Toss-up number 12. One of these entities issues a command to, quote, fix every wandering throughout upon that quarter where all thought is done, and delivers a summons to, quote, the winding ancient stair, unquote, in a poem by William Butler Yeats. Andrew Marvell has one of these entities lament being, quote, constrained not only to endure diseases, but what's worse, the cure, unquote, in a dialogue with a body. For 10 points, what entity's divine majority is described in a poem by Emily Dickinson in which this entity, quote, selects her own society, unquote? And the answer there is soul, or souls. I could have also accepted a dialogue of self and soul, a dialogue between the soul and the body, or the soul selects her own society, which were various works mentioned in the question. Toss-up number 13. During a campaign to force these exhibitions to charge paid admission in 1959, Robert Moses circulated an anonymous letter that accused their organizer of being a communist. The permanent site of these exhibitions overlooks Turtle Pond and Belvedere Castle. In 1987, Martin Sheen and Al Pacino appeared in one of these exhibitions, which take place at the Delacorte Theater. Joseph Papp arranged the first of, for 10 points, what free outdoor performances of Elizabethan drama in Central Park? And the answer there would be Shakespeare in the Park. Could have also accepted New York Shakespeare Festival, or answers indicating Shakespeare plays performed in Central Park, but would have had to prompt on just broad answers like plays before I said Belvedere Castle. And it also makes a note in the answer that in 1987, Martin Sheen and Al Pacino appeared as Brutus and Mark Antony in Julius Caesar in Shakespeare in the Park. Toss-up number 14. Alonzo Church and Stephen Claney name one of these values that is non-recursive and is defined as the supremum of all the ones that are recursive. In some theories, trying to construct the set of these numbers leads to the Burali-Forti paradox. The smallest transfinite one of these numbers is denoted by lowercase omega and has cardinality Aleph 0. Cardinal numbers are contrasted with, for 10 points, what numbers whose name in everyday usage refers to adjectives like third. And those would be ordinal numbers contrasted with cardinal numbers. Toss-up number 15. One of this author's characters hangs himself in a smokehouse after being driven insane by a piece of ham he is forced to wear around his neck. Another of his characters is sliced in pieces at a sawmill after his wife, Tenny, turns him into a tree. This author of Dave's Necklace and Poe's Sandy wrote about a slave whose vitality is linked with the health of a vineyard in a story narrated by Uncle Julius. For 10 points, name this author whose The Gooford Grapevine appears in The Conjure Woman. And the answer there is Chestnut. Charles Waddell Chestnut. Toss-up number 16. Most Shia disregard a hadith saying that 10 members of this group, including Talha and Sayyid ibn Zayd, were granted entry into Jannah while on earth. The Tabi'un are a generation after this group whose members include the Mukaththirun, or reporters of many traditions, who related hundreds of hadiths. This group comprises those who witnessed the Prophet and converted to Islam before their deaths. The first 4 caliphs were part of, for 10 points, what group of friends of Muhammad? And the answer there is Sahaba, As Sahaba. I could have also accepted As Sahabi, or simply companions, or just companion in the singular, but would have had to prompt on followers of Muhammad, friends of Muhammad, Muslims, or the first Muslims. Toss-up number 17. In a video taken in this state, a person asks an older man to say the name Joy Lane. This state's largest police investigation focused on the Rodin family after 8 members were shot execution-style in 2016. In this state, Robert Godwin was killed by Steve Stevens, who posted a video of the shooting on his Facebook account. A May 2016 shooting in this state was meant to save a boy at a zoo. For 10 points, name this state where Harambe, the gorilla, was killed. And that state is Ohio. Toss-up number 18. Interfering species in ICP-MS can be removed by discriminating based on this quantity. Particles are sorted based on their value of this quantity in a hemispherical analyzer. Ions with equal values of this quantity are passed through a drift tube in time-of-flight mass spectrometry. For a Maxwell-Boltzmann gas, the average value of this quantity equals 3/2 kT, matching the result of the equipartition theorem. For 10 points, what quantity classically equals 1/2 mv squared? And the answer there is kinetic energy, or more completely, translational kinetic energy. I would have had to prompt on simply energy. Toss-up number 19. In this film, a judge relates how the people of Athens once opened their gates to a tyrant they had previously banished. This film's characters include Harvey Pell, who gives up his deputy's badge after being passed over for a promotion. Toward the end of this film, Amy Fowler, who is played by Grace Kelly, shoots a man in his back despite the pacifism of her Quaker religion. For 10 points, name this Western in which outlaw Frank Miller is faced by Gary Cooper's Will Kane at the title time. And the answer there is High Noon. Toss-up number 20, and there are 24 toss-ups in this packet. A legal scholar of this surname gave an affirmative approach to define the phrase, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors, unquote, for lay people in Impeachment, a handbook. A justice of this surname, who often cited the English leveler John Lilburn, argued in a dissent to Adamson v. California that the 14th Amendment incorporated the whole Bill of Rights at the state level. The most prominent American law dictionary bears for 10 points what surname of a long-serving Supreme Court justice from Alabama? And that surname is Black. Referred to in the question, these would also be acceptable answers: Charles Lund Black, Hugo Black, Henry Campbell Black, or Black's Law Dictionary. Toss-up number 21. In one passage, this critic imagined the sink-spotted shadow thrown by a water insect on a brook. This man proposed a secular clerisy tasked with preserving literary tradition. He named his son for, but later rejected the views of, the associationist David Hartley. He discussed his obligations to Schelling in a work that distinguishes primary and secondary imagination. The phrase, willing suspension of disbelief, was coined in Biographia Literaria by, for 10 points, what poet of Christabel? And the answer there is Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Toss-up number 22. When the incident beams have this property, measurements of the Hong-O-Mandel effect will be perfectly correlated. A system of particles with this property has quantum states defined in a Fock space and a wave function that is symmetric or antisymmetric under exchange, according to the spin statistics theorem. A 1 over n factorial term multiplies the partition function of a collection of n particles that possess, for 10 points, what property of looking exactly the same? And the answer there is indistinguishable or identical particles. Could have also accepted indiscernible particles or answers indicating particles that cannot be distinguished. I could have also accepted particles that look the same with an underline in same before I said the word same at the very end of the question. The penultimate question of the packet, toss-up 23. In 2017, a leader of this party blamed his then-girlfriend for citing Holocaust denier David Irving in an undergraduate paper in 1999. In 2017, this party unveiled a logo consisting of a lion and the phrase, "For the Nation," in its colors of purple and yellow. Henry Bolton won a 2017 leadership election for this party, whose 2017 general election results faltered a year after it was the largest party to support the Leave option. For 10 points, what Eurosceptic party was once led by Nigel Farage? And the answer there is the UK Independence Party, or UKIP. Final question. Toss-up 24. A man with this position asks Seth Wright to work for him after going into a bathroom to vomit. Another man with this position murders Verna Thornton in the hospital after learning about the Defiance conspiracy. On one TV series, this position is held by Melly, the ex-wife of a man who also held it and who had an affair with Olivia Pope. For 10 points, what position, which was held by Fitz Grant on the show Scandal, is held by former cabinet member Tom Kirkman on Designated Survivor? And that would be the president of the United States. All you had to say was President. Could have also accepted POTUS. And that concludes this Intercollegiate Championship Tournament NAQT packet from the year 2018.